Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me today, Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, it is Charlie O'Connor, and yeah, that's him. It's not a hologram. We actually have him in studio, folks. It's in the season. I realized all summer I probably spent more time with Charlie than I did like my wife.
That's terrifying.
Like we were together 5 days a week for I don't really have conversations that long with most people. Then the season starts. I'm like, where Charlie go?
It's also been a weird schedule.
Yes. Oh, very back-to-backs and
we had the
10 o'clock
the
games.
opening road trip, which I was gone for. I was obviously on the trip. And then you've got all these back-to-backs, which means there are some days we're not having studio. It was the way our schedule works. It's Monday to Sunday as a week. And because they played 4 games in that stretch, there was one show. And I happened to be traveling back home that day that you had the show, so suddenly I wasn't in studio for any of these shows. So just had the one where it was the road game I wasn't at. But beyond that, it's been a weird PHLY show schedule. I do think it will get more normal in the coming weeks. I think
they've played 9 games, and 6 of them have been on the front or back end of a back-to-back.
Like 3 back-to-backs.
That's insane.
Yeah.
In your first 9 games, you've played mostly back-to-back.
John Tortorella, interestingly, kind of commented on it a little bit a few days ago. He basically said, look, when you don't have respect, the league doesn't give you respect in terms of the scheduling. And I think that might have played into it maybe a little bit.
And I have heard, the Flyers are not the only team that have mentioned their schedule. The Devils have played 12 games, because they were out in Prague to start the season.
Yeah.
There have been a bunch of teams. The schedule is very weird. With the 4 nations face-off, they want to fit as many games in as possible before it. I don't know. But a lot of teams are complaining about the schedule. It is what it is. But if you want to connect with Charlie, the best way to do it is to become a diehard. He hangs out in the Discord. He's constantly pumping out content for our diehard subscribers. And right now, you could do it for the low price of $48 for the year. That comes down to $4 a month. 4. That is not a ton of money, folks. So sign up right now, and it's all of the usual benefits of being a diehard, from access to the premium content with our all-star roster of writers. You get access to the Discord, the PHLY Lounge, discount on merch and events. So very many benefits to being a diehard. Sign up, allphly.com. All right, Charlie, this is a thing I've been trying to get to in our post games, and it's like we get bogged down in each individual game.
Yeah, sure.
And I got to ask you about stuff I care about that you don't. Where was the retaliation and things last night?
Things where I'm like, I don't know, Bill.
Man.
I don't know. They
had 4 shots.
They can't fight after every single hit, William.
Well, every single hit on Mish they can. Anyway, so I'm going to get to some of the bigger picture stuff. And the first thing that has really stood out to me about this season, and now I know, again, you've said 10, 15 games is really where you want to start making your evaluations.
We're at 9 now.
And we're at 9, so we're not too far off. But the thing that stood out to me most is last year, they were top 10 in shots on goal per game. I think they were 9th.
Okay.
This year, they don't get the puck on net at all.
Fair.
The Flyers have had single-digit shots in 12 of the last 18 periods. They have 5 or fewer shots in 5 of the last 12 periods. They've only hit 11+ in a period 4 of the last 18. They are basically getting single-digit shots in every period, and sometimes it's 3 to 5. What the hell has happened to this team? Because, yes, they've introduced Michkov. Jet Luchenko had a little cup of coffee here. There's been a lot of changing the lines around. But pretty much everyone in the top 9 is in year 3 of John Tortorella. Yeah, Sean Couturier's in year 2 because he missed the first year. But, these guys have been teammates for a while. They've been playing for the same coaching staff for a while. Why does it look so, as Kelly has said, bajiggity? We heard disengaged or disconnected.
Disconnected
was Scott Lawton.
That was the word that Scott Lawton
and Travis
used
Sanheim were using. John John Tortorella says, like, we're not moving up the ice as a 5-man unit. It's just like even Travis Sanheim's goals. Like, oh, okay, Travis Sanheim looks good. They're like individual plays.
Especially the second one.
When they do good stuff, it's like, yeah, Matvei just decided to be Matvei for a couple of seconds, and we're back in the game. Like, what the hell's going on with a team that did play a decent team game last season?
Yeah, there really isn't one answer. Like Bill, if there was one answer, they would
solve it.
But I do think
this is the shots by period. Like it's ugly.
I mean, I think what's probably going on here at its core is, number one, there are a lot of guys, and we'll get to this in a second, a lot of guys who should be playing better that aren't. And that's taking away some shots because you have guys that just aren't playing up to their standards. Guys who last year took steps forward and this year either haven't taken another step forward or, in a lot of cases, have taken steps back. But the other reason is the disconnect. The team looks disconnected, and I think a big reason for it goes back to the fact that so many guys are struggling. Because what's happening is all of those guys that are struggling are falling into the trap of panicking because they're struggling, and then they try to do things all on their own. And as a result, that's where the disconnect comes in, because suddenly you've got big gaps between the defensemen and the forwards on breakouts. You've got guys not using their their line mates, trying to find guys open for passes, things like that. Instead, they're lugging the puck around the perimeter, looking to do it on their own, or just blasting down the wing on the rush, and then they're getting stuck. I've seen in the neutral zone, they're creating a lot of controlled entries still. It's not like they've resorted to jump and chase, but so many of those controlled entries they'll gain the zone, and then they have to pull up because there's not any support. And then by then, the other team can get into their coverage, and then the Flyers end up, there's not even a one and done. They end up not getting a shot off, or they miss a shot, and then the other team collects it and goes back up ice. So there's a lot of reasons for it. And if a few guys, like Tyson Forster and Morgan Frost and Owen Tippett were playing the way they've played before, I think everything maybe fits back together cleaner. But I do also think that a lot of it is, as the Flyers have noted, this disconnect. And the disconnect is coming from, I think in a lot of ways, a lot of players trying to do too much. And then everybody's off on an island doing their own thing, and therefore they're not having the puck as much as a team, which means they're not taking as many shots because they don't have as many opportunities to shoot because they just don't have the same puck possession they had last year.
And I think all of that is absolutely true. Like, when they do have support, the passing seems off. We've talked a bunch about how much they've missed the net. But
they haven't missed the net.
It hasn't been as bad recently.
I just think that the whole miss the net thing, that's more of a fan-generated thing, because once fans get in their heads that the Flyers miss the net so much, then every time they miss the net, it becomes a confirmation. See, they did it again. Whereas in reality, I did quick math here. This year, so far, the Flyers have hit the net on 50.19% of their shot attempts. Last year, they hit the net on 51.53. Is that a bit worse? Yeah, it's a percentage point worse, but it's not dramatic.
No, the issue now, like, I do think they've been hitting the net at a better percentage lately.
Right.
The issue now is
possession.
Not getting shots off, not having the possession, overpassing sometimes, or not passing, and then, it's 1-on-3. I didn't get a shot off. Right. Like, there's just so many. They just look so disconnected in the offensive end, but I really think it starts with defense. That's where it started last year. They gained their offense by turning defense into offense. Mm-hmm. And they're putting together a breakout, or just getting a stop so that you can break out, has been such a difficult task for them this year. That's why they're getting outshot by so much. It all just kind of leads to, we can't generate offense. Sure, they had the big 7-goal game. Also, going into that third period, they had 6 shots on goal. That's bad. Like, last night, they looked really good for the last 90 seconds. Mm-hmm. Leading up to that, nothing happened in that game. Mm-hmm. Like, there were no highlight plays. Yeah. There was very little to even be interested in. That's why I talked to you about nonsense for a lot of the post-game last night, because what the hell else was I supposed to talk about? I don't expect this team, obviously, to we're going to be top 3 in the division. We're going to compete for the Stanley Cup. Like, That's not their goal. That's not the front office's goal, and they haven't even paid lip service to that idea. They've been like, yeah, man, we make the play. Like, it's a lot of if we don't, we don't. Like, and honestly, we better off if we don't. Like, we've heard a ton of that, but the whole idea of doing the rebuild this way is like, oh yeah, we're going to play competitive games, and guys are going to take a step that way. That, for the most part, has not been the case yet this year. They've turned a couple games competitive, but...
Yeah, like last game, they only lose it by a goal, even if it certainly didn't feel like that.
No, that was the procrastinator special. Like, yo, dog, I got to see, and I put like 2 hours into this project. Everyone else worked on it for a month. Great job. Like, that's what they did last night. Yeah, we really came to play for those last few minutes and only lost by 1. It was like, yeah, but you were down 3 most of the game. Like, maybe don't do that.
Yeah.
It's just been a very discouraging start to this season for a lot of guys. How do you think they fix, like, is there a way for, like, all right, man, just, 4 or 5 guys got to just be a lot better? Is that it? Like, once Tippett, Frost, Farabee, Forster look better, the team will look better? Well, is it that simple?
It's not that simple. Obviously, that would help.
Be better, guys.
That would help.
I don't know. Be better.
That was my argument when people were losing their minds over the line combo. It's like, is Tortorella juggling the lines probably a bit more than he should? Yeah, probably. But also, he wouldn't have to if guys were playing well. So it's kind of hard for me to be like, oh, it's all Torts' fault. Like, I don't know, Tyson Forrester. Play like the guy you were the entirety of last season. Same thing, Joel Farabee, up until last game where I thought he actually looked good for the first time in a couple weeks. But there's a lot of guys who just are not doing what you expect them to do based on their talent level. So that's certainly part of it. That said, I mean, my view of the Flyers right now, because there's been a lot of talk, I think, about how much of this is a carryover from the end of last season. And I do think it is, but maybe not in the way it's being presented. Like, look, is it possible that the players just hate John Tortorella now as residual from the Sean Couturier stuff? Yeah, I think it's likely that a lot of guys in that room aren't big fans of John Tortorella as a consistent disciplinarian, and maybe as someone who sometimes dips into the cruelty well a bit too much for their liking. I think that's possible. But I think the bigger issue and the bigger common thread between the beginning of this season and the end of last season is the roster flaws that emerged over the final 2 months of the year. And there's 3 that come to mind immediately. One, and this is why I was so enthused by Saturday, the number one was Sean Couturier. Once Sean Couturier stopped being a top 6 caliber center, which allowed them to kind of, as I put in my article, duct tape their center depth chart problem, once he stopped being that guy, then the entire forward depth chart looked awful. Because then you had a bunch of guys having to play above where they should be, and it messed with everything. So that was number one. Now, Couturier had a really good game on Saturday. I thought he was okay on Sunday. Not as good, but he made plays.
Yeah.
He looked at around the level on Sunday that he looked in the couple games leading up to Saturday, where you're like, oh, it's coming. There's something
like,
there.
All right, he doesn't suck.
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
Because as much as I love Coots, it is like, yo, he was sucking.
Yeah.
There is a reason. And like maybe it's the injury, maybe it's the rust from the back surgery, whatever. But like there was a reason Tortorella treated him the way he did.
He was bad to start the year, to be sure.
Yeah.
I would say Sunday, while it certainly didn't reach the heights of Saturday, it was around the same level as the few games before when I thought he was trending in the right direction.
Production-wise, that was the best game of his career.
Yeah. So hopefully the Couturier situation is, I'm not going to say he's back, but hopefully that is on the road to at least not being as bad as it was over the final 2 months of 2023, 2024. So that's number one. The center depth chart, a mess once you lose Couturier. And obviously they sent back Zhelotchenko, so he's not even there to be the potential savior. Number two, and this I think is going to stay a problem because it was already a problem, and now it's an even bigger problem given the fact that Cam York is going to miss at least 2 weeks. Ever since they traded Sean Walker, their defense is not good. Now, to start this season, they were at least getting good work from their top pair, the top pair of Travis Sanheim and Cam York. Well, now Cam York is gone. But the big issue is that once you got rid of Sean Walker, then suddenly your second pair is not. The second pair over the first 4 months of last season, it wasn't just fine. It was an active strength.
Yes.
It was their best pair. And you traded away the guy, and I don't think it was the wrong move to trade away Sean Walker.
No.
Get a first-round pick. You're a rebuilding team. But it dramatically weakened your second pair. And for that to fix itself, number one, you need to get York back, because York was the best performing defenseman on this team until he got hurt. Like, he was the guy, even better than Sanheim, who last couple games seems like he's settling back into where he was last year, which good, but not going to be enough. Losing Cam York weakens that top pair. The second pair, I don't know how you fix it unless Jamie Drysdale, like, the light goes on and he figures it out. And while I am in no way, shape, or form ready to say that that's never going to happen, I have never been of the belief that it's going to happen quickly. I think it's going to take time. And unless Drysdale or Andrae or Zamula or somebody steps into that vacated role that Walker had, that impact guy on the second pair, your defense core is significantly weaker than it was over the first 4 months of last season when the Flyers looked good. So that's number two. And then number three, the goaltending. Obviously, major thing happened midway through last season when Carter Hart no longer was an NHL player because of everything that happened with him. Ever since then, the goaltending has been on paper weaker, and so far, it's been a major problem. So those are the three things that I think the Flyers have to, if they want to get back to where they were when they were surprisingly good, those three things need to be addressed. Hopefully, Couturier is coming back. He's getting back to where he was from October through January of last year. The goaltending, they're trying. Maybe Ersson picks it back up, and maybe Kolosov is a much better number two than Fedotov was. So the goaltending, at least there's a path. The defense, though, you mentioned that being one of your big concerns. I agree, and I don't know what the path is to fixing it, especially now that Cam York is out for at least 2 weeks.
Draft, trades, and free agency.
But that's not going to happen now.
No, that's exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, like, I just think a lot of these guys aren't good enough, or at least not far enough along in their development as when we talk about Jamie Drysdale. I'll tell you what is encouraging about the defense for me.
What's that?
Sanheim has looked good playing on the left side the last couple games.
Yeah, it's true.
And while, like, yeah, he's a left side defenseman, how big of a deal could that be? I never wanted to move him back because I've never really been that big of a fan of Travis Sanheim until last season.
I know that, yeah.
No, just like, he's never super impressed me. Last season, they move him over to the right, and I really liked what I saw out of him. And it's, well, long term, do we want that? You know, we have some right shot defensemen. Oliver Bonk is a right shot. Like,
right.
Is there room for him there, especially when we don't have, like, a second pair D right now? Right. And ultimately, that's where we hope he ends up. Well, he's playing the left side, and he's playing it next to Rasmus Ristolainen, and he's looked pretty good. Yeah. Like, that is a small, encouraging thing that I've taken.
And Risto's been fine so far in that role, and he has to be.
Yes.
Because it's like, if he's bad there,
what is it?
Then, well, they just got nobody until Cam York comes back. And with York, you know, they said 2 weeks, but it's like, at least 2 weeks. That's concerning.
At least 2 weeks, and then he'll be reevaluated. Right. Do we know what it is?
I think it's a shoulder.
Okay.
The two possible, it was either shoulder or concussion.
Yeah.
Based on the hit. Both of them fit with the timeline.
Yes.
I've heard shoulder, but, like, it wouldn't shock me if it's a little of both. I don't know.
Yeah, like, all right, he got knocked a little loopy. Also, he had shoulder injury last year.
Yeah, and he played through that.
He played through, and honestly, he had some good games.
Yeah. But you don't want to keep playing
your
young, like, early 20s defenseman. You don't want to have him be playing through shoulder injuries, possibly then have lingering shoulder issues your entire career.
Yeah.
For a team that has no designs on winning a cup.
He's their only, right now, guy who could potentially be a top pair defenseman on a good team.
Yeah.
I don't need him playing through shoulder injuries or concussions.
Like
that's asinine.
Last year, at least there was a reason. They're in a playoff race. He wanted to help that team make the playoffs. I remember he really wanted to play in the outdoor game, which is one of the reasons why he just, like, shot himself full of something and then just played through it. And then it was like, well, we're in a playoff race. I want to help my team make the playoffs. Well, now they are, what, 2-7?
Yeah, they are.
Maybe you don't play through the injury in this situation.
2-6-1, and the only team in the league worse by points or points percentage, San Jose.
Yeah,
winless again. Good for them.
But seriously, like, if York is out for, you know, let's say 3 weeks, let's be relatively optimistic here. Say maybe he misses another few days after the 2-week timetable is up. The Flyers' D-core never looked terribly impressive, and now looks very concerning. You basically have to pin your hopes on the Sealer-Drysdale pair clicking very quickly.
Turning into the Sealer-Walker pair, which I don't think it's... I know that they have to, like, in their heads, retrain Jamie Drysdale. And Sean Walker was a revelation last season.
He was.
But considering what we thought of Sean Walker when we acquired him, and what he had looked like, he was fine for Colorado last year. He didn't set the world on fire. Yeah. Like, considering what Sean Walker ultimately is as a player, I don't think it's too much to ask a former 6th overall pick for whom we traded Cutter Gauthier, no goals yet, to look like freaking Sean Walker. But I understand everything that's going into that.
I think he can get there. I just don't think it's going to happen this year.
He should be, but this might be like a 3-year project. Who the hell knows? All right, before we go any further with today's show, I got to tell you about our presenting sponsor, our friends at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. They have over 90 million users worldwide and live stream over 780,000 events each year. And the thing I love, I've been telling you about this since Bet365 came aboard, the early payouts across the NBA, NFL, and NHL with the Bet365 early payout offer. For NHL bets, you're a winner if your team gains a 3-goal lead with an instant payout on straight bets, and parlay selections are marked as winners as well. So download the app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. I'm giving out bets before every pregame. You probably want to fade me, honestly, right now at this point. Just do the opposite, whatever the hell I'm doing, and you'll come out ahead. But whatever you do, download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. While we're here, all right, so you have your bet on the game. Now maybe you want to go to the game. There's no better way to do it than with Game Time, baby. I've been using Game Time quite a bit. It's my favorite secondary market ticket provider. I just got tickets to see AEW in November at the Liacouras Center using Game Time, using that seat view. It was tremendous, and I used the newest feature, Game Time Picks, that makes tickets for your favorite event, finding tickets even easier and faster. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And that's, the newest feature. It's great. But they still have all the other ones that made Game Time my favorite, from the all-in pricing, the seat views, the low price guarantee, and the Game Time ticket coverage, where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Game time. All right, Charlie, where the hell were we? So I want to get into some of the individual issues that this team has had. Yeah. And we're going to start from the back out. We've done a ton on the offense. And while, listen, like we talked about, we wanted to get into the second period stuff. Honestly, let's do that now. Because I think that goes along with the shot volume and how disjointed this team has been. We know slow starts have been the narrative around the Flyers for as long as we've been doing this. Right now, however, they're minus 13 in the second period. Was it 19-6 they've been outscored?
19-6, yes.
Their goal differential, which is second worst in the league overall, is minus 13.
It's entirely the second period.
It's unbelievable. They're even in the other two periods. Yeah. And then the middle frame, yeah, man. Minus, we're 9 games in. Yeah. They're minus 13. Yeah. That's insane.
The last 3 games, they've given up 3 goals in each of the second periods.
3 goals in any period, wow, that's a hell of an effort there. They're doing it on a consistent basis, allowing that many. Yeah. That's another just one of those things, but why? It's just what is, again, if they knew the answer, they could probably fix it, or at least Band-Aid it, but adjustments the other team is making. They just get a little loose because the first period they had 3 shots, so they're like, we got to try more, and that results in less. Like, what the hell's going on?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about what's functionally different about the second period, there's one obvious structural difference about the second period, and it's the long change.
The long change.
Now, do I think that that is the entire reason? No, I don't. There's probably a lot of noise here. However, we have talked over the past week or so about the sloppiness of this team and the fact that they have been messing up line changes. And I do wonder if when you have a team that isn't playing connected and isn't playing with their your usual structure and is occasionally messing up line changes like the one that where they give up the breakaway because literally no one is playing right defense. Like that happened in the second period.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just like, if you have these existing problems and then you put them in an environment where the second period tends to highlight when you have these problems, maybe it just makes it a little bit tougher because like this is it's a symptom. It's a symptom of the overarching problem, and the second period is just a little bit more of a stress test because the changes are a little bit tougher.
Honestly, that's the best explanation I've heard. Like, they talked about this on Flyers Daily today. It's been a part of the broadcast the last couple of games, and it's just like, this is ridiculous, but what is the issue? And it really is. I think the best explanation is they're just sloppy as hell right now.
Yeah.
Like, they can't break out. They can't string together passes. It's individual efforts that sometimes they pay off in goals, and a lot of times it's like, well, I'm 1-on-3, and now we're turned over. Yeah. And when that happens with the long change, just one simple, stupid thing, it highlights your deficiencies. And that's really what's going on right now. I guess maybe they're a victim of their own like hype right now. Because no one like thought this team was good, but we were excited anyway. We're like, look, all these guys, like they have some pieces we like. And like a couple of them just come out slow. And yeah, man, we're 2-6-1.
Well, I made the point in the article I wrote last week, which if you're not a diehard, subscribe, become a diehard,
right now,
read
$48.
If you are a diehard and you haven't checked it out, I'm pretty proud of the piece. I think it was one of the ones I'm most proud of over the last few weeks. But to me, the key to this whole thing is they look like the team right now that we thought they were going to be at the start of last year.
Yes.
That is what's going on. And it's extremely disappointing because you want ideally your team to be going on an upward trajectory. Now, last year, maybe, and you talked about it during the season, you're like, I'm sort of expecting them to be bad this next year, that maybe this year is like the surprising spike year. And then they're going to take, 2 steps back to take 3 steps forward over the long term the following year. Then we all got sucked in with Michkov scoring all the points in preseason and whatever. And suddenly it's like, they'll make the playoffs. Maybe. Sure. Why not? But I think if you're going to say, why do they look like the team that we thought they were going to be last year? It's important to turn the clock back to where we were going into
back a year.
Nice Dark Knight reference. Think about it this way. Going into last season, and again, I'm going to go back to these 3 things that we talked about earlier that I mentioned. Couturier, the goaltending, and the defense. Going into last season, the Flyers and Flyers fans had no clue what they were going to get out of a Sean Couturier with 2 back surgeries, coming off 2 back surgeries. No clue what he was going to be. Now, for the first 4 months of the year, he was real good. So that was a surprise. But going into the season, I had no idea that was going to be the case. He was a total unknown. In fact, it was probably optimistic to think he was going to be as good as he was the first 4 months of the year. The defense, going into the season, Sean Walker was 2 months removed from being a cap dump.
We were like, who the hell is this guy?
I wasn't sure if he was going to be an every night defenseman. Then suddenly, for the first 4 or 5 months of the season before they trade him, he performs like a legitimately above average second pair NHL defenseman. But going into the season, we had no idea knowing he was going to be that. So again, that plays into why expectations were so low. The goaltending. We didn't know going into last season if Carter Hart was going to play a single game for the team because everyone knew what was hanging over his head. The NHL and London police and everybody, they kind of dragged their feet. I think the Flyers weren't sure that summer if Hart was going to be available for game 1. Instead, they get him for the first 4 months of the season when they're real good. Now, obviously, they don't have him, but going into the season, we had no idea.
I think there's a good reason they gave Sam Ersson a 2-year contract extension, having seen him play 10 NHL games.
Exactly. So what I'm more or less saying is that the answer to the question of why do the Flyers this year look like the team we expected we were going to get at the start of last year? The reason is because they kind of are that team. They are that team. They are a team without heart, without Walker, without sort of 1C caliber Sean Couturier. That's why they are that team, because last year they would have been that team had 3 really big things not broken their way for 4 months.
So let's hit the goaltending. I'll start with Sam Ersson. I think he's played better than his numbers, but
they're bad.
His numbers are horrendous.
Yeah, they're real bad.
So better than that is still pretty bad.
Yeah. What's he at 877?
Yeah, his numbers are. Ersson's 872 save percentage is 52nd out of 70 goalies.
Yeah, it's rough.
That's absolutely horrendous. And then you look at the guys behind him. Even worse, Kolosov 833 is 65th out of 70. That's one game, but it's all goalies who've taken a shot. It's everyone, I included, because he played one game.
Because why not?
And Fedotov is 821, 67th out of 70. Overall,
I'm surprised he's not last.
I can't believe he's Georgiev is actually worse.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I think he's 68th. And he's their starter. 5-on-5 team save percentage 851. If you're wondering if anyone's worse than them, they're not. It's the worst save percentage in the league. Other things on this team, as we just went through, are real bad. It's not just the goalies. But when you are getting legitimately the worst goaltending in the league every single night, you have no chance of winning, and they don't.
Yeah.
That's what it's come down to is we always say, you need depth, and you need your 1C, and you need a top pair defense. The thing that masks so many things is goaltending. And when it has this level of impact on your game where it's not even, we're getting by, they're average, they're a little below average. No, they're horrendous. You can't win, and they don't.
Yeah, but I do think you're letting the defense off the hook a bit. Because, look,
you don't have the worst save percentage without giving up that many scoring chances.
The goalies have not been good. That is true. But I do think that if the defense tightens up a bit, if the team defense tightens up a bit, the goalies, even if they're not actually playing any better in terms of true talent level, their numbers are going to get better just because the defense is not giving up breakaways all the time and not giving up super high quality chances. The one thing that they have struggled mightily at this season, and I don't know if it's just fluky or if there's something that teams have recognized with the way that they tend to do defensive zone coverages, they are giving up so many goals that are redirections in the slot.
Yes.
And those are goals I can't bring myself to blame a goalie for that. I really can't. Those are real tough ones to stop. And it just seems like they're not covering those guys.
There've been the one off the shin pad last night. There was the shoulder goal a couple of games ago. And it's that's just kind of weird. But it's happening every single game.
Yeah. And some of them aren't fluky. Some of them are really nice.
Some of them are they're actually trying to do it.
Yeah.
It's definitely an issue where maybe the zone defense and the collapsing in, it's well, guess what? There's going to be traffic. There's just going to be traffic because we're trying to block shots.
I just think it's the overall sloppiness. Yeah, I really do. But I've noticed a lot of those goals happening. And look, small sample, yes, but the season is a small sample right now. They're giving up a lot of those goals, and those are goals I have trouble pinning on the goalies.
So, the goalies have not been good. But an 851 save percentage at 5-on-5 is well, why?
Yeah.
Because you're giving up way too many high danger chances and you're giving up way too much in those areas. They have to figure that stuff out. And just the broken stick goal last night where I guess maybe Kolosov just had trouble tracking it as it moved so slowly.
It was a fluky play.
It was so fluky.
Someone should have recognized that all you got to do is put your stick out and deflect it, but just no one did.
But again, there's a guy on the back door completely unmarked. And these things are just happening so often that it's, while again, goalies suck, so too has the defense. And when the defense is this bad, again, they're not getting those turnover opportunities that led to all those rush chances last year. All of this is combining into okay, we can't get a save. When we do get a save, no one clears the rebounds. So someone's in front to put it. it's all just combining to how can we ever score if the puck never gets like 3 of us going in the same direction at the same time? And it's been ugly. But the Kolosov-Fedotov situation itself. Right now, they're carrying 3 goalies.
Which they can.
And
because Cam York is on IR and they sent Jet Luchenko.
And
so they have the space. So they can do it.
Honestly, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm cool with it. Whatever.
I kind of thought coming into this year, like, all right, we were going to have Ersson and Fedotov before the Kolosov situation really unfolded. I was like, maybe bring in a vet so you have some stability. If, like, Ersson gets hurt, you don't have to put Fedotov in for 2 straight weeks, and then he gets killed, and we're in the situation we were in last year all over again with an even worse goalie or a guy who's never played in North America before. But now with Kolosov, it's like, well, if we're going to lose him, let's try to keep him.
Yeah.
I have no problem with carrying 3 right now. It's not ideal most times, but considering what this team is, why not?
Well, and at the very least, based on what I saw from Kolosov in that game, but also what I saw from him in preseason, I don't know if he's good. I truly don't. But I know watching him, I think there's a path that you can envision where he is good in a way that there hasn't been when you watch Ivan Fedotov.
No, that's the
it's plausible when I watch Kolosov to be like, yeah, he could get you like a 900 save percentage. Yeah, I could see that.
Exactly.
Whereas I watch Fedotov, I'm like, and literally one of our commenters said this, and it's fair. Like, it feels like every save he gets, he lucked into.
It's luck. Yeah. Like, just be bigger, dude. I don't know.
It looks so bad.
It's
Kolosov at least looked good most of the game.
Yeah, like it seems like Kolosov just needs like the reps and experience that go along with a developing player, and that makes sense. He's 22 years old,
right?
Like goalies typically don't play at this age in the NHL. Yeah. He just needs to get better, as is the natural progression for most.
Needs to be more consistent with his reads, with his positioning. Like the goal he gives up to Caulfield, like that is a bad goal, but that is a bad goal that seemingly you can fix that problem pretty quickly with some reps.
I agreed with you last night that that's just a goal you can't give up. Also, Cole Caulfield's a goal scorer.
True.
That's a goal scorer's goal.
It's a goal scorer's goal.
If you give that goal up to Ryan Poehling, yeah, man, that's unforgivable. You need to make that stop 9.5 times out of 10. Yeah. But sometimes a gifted goal scorer gets one like that.
Finds a way. Yeah.
Like too much time and space. He had way too much time to pick his spot. But yeah, like seal the post, man. That's first day stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just like he needs to learn that. You watch Fedotov and go, is he like the emergency guy? Is he someone who doesn't actually know what he's doing and he showed up with pads, so we had to play him? Like, the path for him is, I don't know, but he needs a lot of work.
Yeah.
I don't know how he gets there. And right now, Kolosov, it's like, yeah, man, he just needs to get older.
Especially when you're 27. And you've already thrived doing it your way in probably the second best professional league in the world. I don't know how easy it is for you to make dramatic adjustments to your game, which is what I think he probably has to make if he wants to be an NHL caliber goalie. Now, it would be real cool if he could do it.
Sure.
And maybe, you have him do remedial work with Kim Dillaball, get a translator in here so you can just bounce ideas off of each other. They have that developmental coach that they hired from the KHL. It's not a goalie expert, but he is a hockey expert. Maybe he could function there. And you just have him work with Kim Dillaball for 2 straight weeks. Maybe that does it. But the version of Ivan Fedotov we've seen so far, like, I don't see a path where that goalie, without dramatic overhaul of his style, can thrive in the NHL. Maybe he can get to the point where he's an 880 save percentage goalie, but like, you don't want that guy on your team either.
It's probably not going to happen yet. Can you see a world where he's in the AHL, Fedotov?
I think everything's on the table. Now, obviously, in this situation, you're going to have to talk with him. You're going to have to talk with his camp. But, maybe there's a world where if he sits for a while, maybe you give him a conditioning stint in the AHL. And then you work it that way, where it's like, we're not really sending you down. We're giving you a chance to work on the things that you've been learning over the last couple weeks under Dillaball. And you can work on those things in a environment where there aren't Cole Caulfields and, Steven Stamkos is shooting the puck at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, maybe that is some way they could sell it to him. Look, if they wanted to, they could send him down because there's no one that is claiming him.
No.
However, you have to remember that there are people involved in this too. This guy came over from Russia. I don't know if they would be willing to do that just because he's been bad. I feel like that would have to, or at least it should. It would have to come after the two sides have had a conversation about what the right way to go is.
How long do you expect Kolosov to stay up? Like,
Well,
do you think the 3 goalie? Because if they're not going to send Fedotov down, like, do you think the 3 goalie thing is, yeah, while York's out and we have the roster spot, why not? Is it 2 weeks? Was it just this one-off? How do you think this plays out?
I don't think they know yet. However, I do think that the fact that Kolosov didn't look bad last night definitely pushes them in the direction of, well, let's keep him up for now. Maybe you're right. Maybe they do just wait. They have 3 goalies while Cam York is out because they have the spot. Obviously, they called up Andrae, but they still have the one spot they're using. They don't need to call up anybody else, really. Maybe the situation changes if more guys get hurt because then it's like, well, we kind of have to call somebody up or else we're not going to have a full lineup. So, sorry, Alexei, you got to go down, even though it's not like you deserve to go down. It's just that we need the spot to be able to, dress an 18-man skater lineup. So right now, based on what John Tortorella said after the game, where he praised Kolosov for his play, and based on what he said before the game, when I straight up asked him, like, is this a one-game thing? Is he going to be here for a while? And Tortorella more or less said, we'll see. Well, if the mentality here was we'll see, and then after the game, you ask John Tortorella, and he's like, yeah, he was good, I don't think they're going to be itching to send him down right away.
And there's no reason to.
There's no reason to.
Yeah. You're getting, again, the worst goaltending in the league, and if there is part of we need to placate this guy a little bit, yeah, let him earn that NHL.
And also, like, while I'm not in love with the idea of just caving to Kolosov for everything, it's different because Fedotov has been this bad.
He's been horrible.
Like,
yes.
I honestly do believe that if Fedotov would have been fine, he'd be sitting at 900, whatever, looks like a perfectly adequate NHL backup goalie, and Harrison's sitting at 905, and you're like, yeah, goaltending's pretty good. I don't think they call Kolosov up.
I agree.
I think that while that was always on the table, and I'm sure that was discussed of like, hey, we'd like to see him get some NHL time. We'd like to see him get a shot. I think if the goaltending was fine in the NHL, the Flyers would have been like, you know what? We want you to stay in the AHL. If you are dead set on only playing in the NHL versus the KHL, we'll work on a loan back for you. But it's real. Number one, it's real hard to say to Kolosov, yeah, our goaltending has been the worst in the league, but you still can't come up. So number one, it's a tough sell to him.
Yeah.
Number two, they just need another solution because, like, Harrison, I think they know they can work with. He hasn't been good, but it's less been that he's been horrific and more been that he hasn't given them the big momentum-changing 50-50 saves that you need to get from a starting NHL goalie. He's not stopping the breakaways like he did last year.
Yeah.
He's not. I thought he had a poor game against Minnesota, the game they won. Before then, though, I thought it's been more just that, like, yeah, he hasn't been good, but he hasn't been horrific. Fedotov has been horrific.
And just, again, when you watch Harrison, it's like maybe, I said this to Steve, maybe it's because the bar has fallen through the floor and has reached the Earth's core at this point. But you watch Harrison and it's like, yeah, he hasn't been good, but he's so much better than what else we've seen that it's hard to blame him. All right. He gave up 2 shorthanded breakaways. I'd like to see them stop, but also maybe don't give up 2 shorthanded breakaways in a period.
Well, it's both problems.
Yes.
The goaltending needs to be better, and the defense also needs to be better. But my point is that with Harrison, you give him the runway. You trust that he's going to get better, even if he just gets better because the defense around him gets better. With Fedotov, even if the defense gets better, he still isn't looking like an NHL caliber goalie, which gives you the reason to be like, all right, we're not bringing up Kolosov because we're frustrated with Harrison. We're bringing up Kolosov because Ivan Fedotov does not look NHL caliber right now, and maybe Kolosov can.
Before we go any further, Rite Aid wants to tell you to get your flu shots. It's a fun time of year. Halloween parties. Maybe you have one coming up this week. All the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas just around the corner. Everything Lots of sports going on. I think we have a sports equinox today, I believe, with all 4 sports in action.
Hey-o.
You don't want to miss any of it, so get a flu shot at Rite Aid, and while at the pharmacy, get a vaccine review and recommendations to see what else your pharmacists believe you might need to get through flu season. CDC recommends getting a flu shot every year because a person's immune protection from vaccinations declines over time. So you got to protect yourself against the flu by getting your annual flu shot at Rite Aid today. According to the CDC, flu vaccinations may reduce a child's risk of severe life-threatening influenza by 75%. So help protect your family and those around you by getting that flu shot. Flu viruses are constantly changing, so get your annual flu shot formulated to help you protect against this year's expected strains. And again, while you're there, make sure you're caught up on all your vaccinations because you don't want to miss the fun of the season, and you can always stock up on cold, cough, flu, and allergy essentials as well. Rite Aid has what you need to get you through the season. Just walk into your local Rite Aid or schedule an appointment at riteaid.com. State, age, and health restrictions apply. Ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for details. And while we're here, you know what else is fun? Teams chasing down rings. So you know what isn't fun? Yourself going ring shopping. Unless you do it at Golden Nugget Jewelers on the corner of 8th and Chestnut in downtown Philly. They've been family-owned and operated since 1987. If you're getting engaged, they have a wide assortment of rings and wedding bands to fit anyone's style. And when you go with Golden Nugget, you're not just getting a great piece of jewelry. You're not just getting a great deal. You can receive great service like a final cleaning and written appraisal with every engagement ring purchase. And it's not just wedding jewelry. You can find watches, diamond necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and so much more. You deserve an expert and the best price. Golden Nugget Jewelers, where Philly gets engaged. Head over to goldennuggetjewelers.com to learn more. All right, let's talk about this defense a little bit.
Okay.
And really, there's only so much you can do with it while York is out. It's going to be Sanheim Risto because who the hell else would it be?
Yeah, I would say your only other option really would be keep Sanheim on the right side, move Sealer up.
Move Sealer. And
that's not a good answer either.
The whole idea is like what they did with Johnson early while Risto wasn't around or whoever the hell it was. Who wasn't in? Was it Risto early in the season?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember. Like they only want to disrupt one pair at a time. I compared it to like when the Eagles' left tackle gets hurt. It's like, well, why not move over Lane Johnson? It's because we don't want to weaken 2 spots. So we want to keep the pairs as consistent as we can. The whole idea is Sealer, Drysdale together, see if they can.
No, it was Sealer who was out.
Yeah, it was Sealer. You're right. Sealer, Drysdale. So they had Johnson with Drysdale. And it's like, all right, take one out, put the other in, problem solved. Now, though, with York, you have to move some things around. How long do you think Andrae is in for? Because I liked this move. I liked what I saw out of Andrae.
I liked what I saw from him too.
I don't think he like stood out in any way, but in a game where the whole team sucked, I thought he made a few really nice plays offensively and defensively. They're having so much trouble with the breakout. We talked about that was like Sean Walker's thing. You even look at his points total and go, man, I felt like he was such a big part of the offense last year, and he didn't put up that many, but it was like just orchestrating the breakout was so hard for them without him.
He was really good on the stretch passes.
He was so good with that. And we saw a little bit of that out of Andrae. It didn't sound like Torts was super excited about the idea of keeping Zamula out of the lineup for any amount of time. But with the way this defense is played, Andrae looked like a decent player last night.
Yeah, and I guess there's a world where you can shuffle things around where you bring Eric Johnson out of the lineup because he is functionally the 7, and then you bring Zamula back in. You just have to do some tricky things with the left-right combos, have some guys maybe on their offside, whatever. You could do it. Obviously, the easiest way is just to keep Zamula out because Zamula has been the worst performing defenseman on the 6-man group from pretty much the start of the year. Andrae, at least in last night's game, was better than pretty much everything we've seen from Zamula so far this year. But they like Yegor Zamula. They think that they can develop him into, I don't think they look at him and they're like, oh, he can be a first-pair defenseman. But I think they believe he was on the trajectory last year to ultimately be a quality, middle to bottom of the lineup defenseman. Obviously, this year he's been bad. But I don't think they are ready to throw in the towel on Zamula because he's off to a rough start. So I don't think he's going to be out forever. That said, I agree. I want to see more of Emil Andrae. I do.
And I liked Yegor Zamula last year, I've said this on a couple of post games now, like, if the 2010 Flyers have last year's Igor Zamula, they probably win the cup. Like, yeah, I don't see him as much more than a third pair defenseman, but you need those guys. And if it's like, hey, man, we found this pretty good player, undrafted, but I think back to Phil Myers and just go, we have seen these undrafted guys fall off a cliff before.
True.
Like, maybe that's just what's happening here.
Wrong.
It could very well happen. But I don't know. He just looked like a fine enough third pair dude and has not been the case this year. But I am rooting for him to turn it around because I do think there's definitely more there than we've seen so far this season.
Well, we saw there was more there last year. And he wasn't great last year, but he was a hell of a lot better than this.
He was an adequate third pair guy, which is, listen, you need a lot more than that, but you do need that too. And if you have it, like, that's just one more box you can check.
He was up and down last year. There were stretches where he looked good, and then there were stretches where he looked bad. But there certainly wasn't a run from the start of the year. Because that's another thing you do have to remember is that, like, he was up and down last year, but at least there was a baseline of, well, we remember 2 weeks ago when he looked pretty good for a week and a half, whereas this year, this is all we've seen from him. So because of that, you get in your head like, well, this guy just stinks. And maybe he does, but I don't think he's actually this bad. He just might not be that good.
No, it is always like you have to remember if you have a stretch of 9 games in February, but you were good before that, like it feels so much different.
Because you have that baseline of, I remember when he was good. Now, the last time Zamula was good was probably like mid-March?
February? Yeah, like, exactly. It was almost 9 months ago.
Yeah,
whatever.
It was a while ago.
Like, I'm hoping he gets it going, but Andrae is supposed to be part of the future. Like, they see more in him than, he'll be a fine enough third pair guy.
Yeah,
I want to see more Emil
Andrae.
Andrae.
I hope he can be a legitimate second pair defenseman.
How much of an appetite?
I think higher of his upside than I do Yegor Zamula's.
Yes, I think most people who've seen them play, it's like, well, he might be more.
Yeah.
You know, don't know what his ceiling is, but it's higher than Zamula's. How much of an appetite do you think there is to keep them? Because he makes the trip, doesn't get into a game. It doesn't feel as if they're like, oh, yeah, we're ready to give him consistent NHL minutes. They want him in the AHL cooking a little longer. Do you think there's even an appetite to keep him up? Or the way Tortorella spoke, at least pregame, sounded like we just need to get Zamula out to watch and try to build him back up and then get him back in there and see if he learned anything or was able to flip a switch or whatever.
Yeah, Bill, I don't know the answer to that question, but I do think it more depends upon what their plan is for Zamula versus their plan for Andrae. Because their view of Emil Andrae is they don't think he's quite yet ready to be a full-time NHLer, and they know he needs to play. So if he's in a situation where he's not going to be playing on a near nightly basis in the NHL, they're going to send him back down there because they can. He's waiver exempt. They don't have to worry about losing him, and they feel like he's not fully cooked. If they watched Sunday's game, though, and they're like, well, you know, Andrae showed a heck of a lot more in his however many minutes than Zamula has in any of his minutes so far this year. We need some wins. We need to keep him in the lineup against Boston. Then you start wondering, okay, maybe they will keep him up. But if the plan was just to give Zamula a 1 or maybe 2 game at most reset, then he's not going to be here that long unless they want him to jump Erik Johnson in the lineup, which at least on the trip, they didn't seem willing to do.
I know people don't want to hear it. I think it's fair to Erik Johnson, but also, it's like, are we rebuilding or aren't we? Why not give the kid the chance?
But again,
I know that's not.
Yeah, their view is he's not. They don't think he's quite ready.
It's not about is Andrae better than Zamula? Is Andrae better than Johnson right now? Because, again, they don't care about right now.
It might ultimately be, is Andrae better than Zamula when they have to make decisions about the future of their blue line?
Yeah.
But right now, they want Zamula, I believe, to play. And Andrae, they also want to play, and they just feel like Andrae can play in the AHL, and Zamula can't.
It is very funny to me that the way this schedule has worked out, Andrae has only played 1 AHL game.
It is very
and
funny.
Now he's played 1 NHL game. Just the AHL schedule, because they only basically play on weekends. Like, there's something, but he missed the first few and then got into one and was like, we need you back. That's great. All right, a couple other things I want to get to. I want to get to Sean Couturier because I think it's cool.
Saturday's game was cool.
Just him being a good player again is nice. And the Flyers scoring list, all time. Really, really enjoying this right now with TK, or with Coots. He's 16th all-time in points, 17th all-time in Flyers goals. And
I do find it funny. One thing that's great about this image is you can see which guys you've clicked.
Oh, yes.
So it's like, you really didn't care about looking at Murray Craven's career numbers, huh?
No, I didn't. It just also like just see how many games and everything, and like Coots has just been here a while. But looking at this list and seeing so many recent guys on it cracks me up because the team's been so bad for so long.
Yeah,
but they've also been stagnant. Like in our lifetime, it was like, yeah, man, a couple guys had some good seasons and we moved on from them. Like we traded them. It's like, yeah, Braden Shen would have been traded after 2 years in the 90s.
Oh,
like 100%.
Absolutely.
It's just very funny to me.
It took Sean Couturier, like 5 years, 6 years to become Sean Couturier? There is no way a Bob Clark managed team keeps him.
No, he is out of here. Ken Hitchcock goes, I can't deal with this guy. Trying to win a Stanley Cup around here. But like, Scott Laughton is 19th all-time in Flyers games played. He's going to pass Jimmy Watson by the end of this week.
Wow.
He's going to pass Leclerc and Gagne if he stays healthy all year.
Honestly,
that's
though,
wild to me.
That isn't that wild to me because like Scott Laughton is in so many ways like he fits that mold of like the Broad Street Bullies. Not in the sense of like him being the super tough guy who's fighting everybody, but in the sense of being like the glue role player type who will probably still be living here when he's 80.
Oh, I expect Scott Laughton to be near the top of the list in games played by the time everything's said and done. It feels like we rolled through so many of those guys for so long. Like, bottom of the roster guys. We traded one, we traded for another, shipped him in and out. It's like, he's going to be top 5 in games played when his career's over. And that's just very funny to me. But it is really cool to see Sean Couturier back doing what he's doing and now like moving up the historical lists. Like he's going to move up into like the top 16, 17, 15 in scoring this season. The games played, he's going to be moving up.
We talked about when he signed the contract. Now, obviously he's missing time, but the idea of like he could end up being the team's highest games played player ever.
Yeah,
by the end of the contract if he plays it all the way through.
It is.
I don't know if that's still the case now, but we have to go back and do the math.
You have to go. It was, I think, in like his second to last season, he was going to do it, and he's already missed a year, so like it's totally. But either way, Sean Couturier being some semblance of what he was prior to the injury, in a couple of years, if he's still this team's 1C, things have gone wrong.
Yeah, there's a real problem.
But just being a guy you can be in that middle 6 role, like me and Steve went back and forth like 2C, 3C, but it's like, yeah, man, if they're winning, he's going to play 20 minutes. Yeah. And if they need a couple of goals, maybe he's the 3C that day. But right now, him being some semblance of, okay, again, see a path to this being all right is so big for this team.
All the Flyers really need right now is they need the Sean Couturier that they got from October through January of last season. Yeah. That's all they need. Now, would it be amazing for them if he's better than that? Sure. But that's all they need to hang in there, at least in the short term, before they have what they hope are younger, more long-term answers, et cetera. Now, obviously, Jet Luchenko is one of those longer-term answers. They sent him back. Danny Briere, he did not guarantee that Jet Luchenko was going to make the team out of camp next year, but he notably did not shut the door. He was holding his own this year as a just-turned 18-year-old. Presumably, if he has a good developmental year and comes to camp and shows a little bit more offense with all the other things staying the way they were, he's probably making the team next year. So that's one. Then you need to find your 1C. Now, hey, maybe it's Jet. Maybe Luchenko develops real well and he becomes a 1C. If he doesn't, I don't know. If teams keep playing this bad, maybe they get a top 5 pick and they get that 1C in this year's draft. Who knows? But all they need for now is Couturier to just be that, like 50 to 55 point guy who drives play and they can stick him with Michkov and he doesn't hold him back.
And win some face-offs. He's the only one on the team that can.
winning face-offs.
He is. He's doing very well. The whole rest of the team really needs a lesson. All right, before we wrap up today, I want to thank all of our diehards. If you're not a diehard, sign up at allphly.com right now. $48 for the whole year. Do it. But to everyone who's already subscribed, we very much appreciate you. I just want to do one more thing. It doesn't look like we have any super chats today.
Okay.
Matvei Michkov. I want to do this whenever we have the live show. Just update everyone on the rookie scoring race.
Okay.
And he's leading.
All right.
9 points in 9 games. TK has taken the...
he's got the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
He's got the tiebreaker.
He's got the goals.
Because Logan Stankoven, that bum, only has 1 goal. Mishkov has 4, so he's in the lead.
I'm just trying to win the competition, Charlie. I bet on Michkov to win the thing. I'm no fool. But it's really fun to see. He's tied with Stankoven with the 9 points. He's 4 goals, leads all rookies. Right now, he's in the driver's seat. I thought last night was maybe his worst game as a Flyer.
He looked tired.
He looked tired. He looked like he was forcing things. The whole team looked like they were forcing things. Yeah. Again, it's hard for me to really, and I know he's been their best player to this point. TK starting to get going again. He's taken over the team leading points. He's at 10 now. But it's hard for me to blame the teenagers and the real young guys when the whole team looks like crap like they did last night. You know, the 19-year-old needs to get it together. Yeah, so do the 30-year-olds. So
does everybody.
I'm not gonna be blaming him when everyone needs to. But
he didn't have a great game.
It's just a little reminder.
Arguably, maybe Travis Sanheim.
Yeah, it's just a little reminder that he's 19 and maybe he's not gonna have 82 points this year.
Well, I will say
he will. It's just every now and then we need to be brought back down to earth because he has a couple multi-point games. So well, this is him. He's breaking 100 this year. It's all right, he's not going to do it every night. All right, we did get one super chat before we get out of here. I see it from Mellerman4. Got to have at least one super chat. Shout out to Steve on post games.
He's doing a good job.
Flyperbole has been killing it for us. Yeah. Very, very happy with what we've got out of Steve on post games. We'll be back tomorrow with pre and post game as well as a watch along. That's right. Stick with us. From 6:30 all the way through post game, we will be live right here. Make sure you're following us on the YouTube page so you can watch it. Never miss a live show. Set that reminder bell so you get notifications when we do go live. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. You can see our schedule pinned at the top. Also, all my nonsense tweets during games. If you want to interact with me, that's where I'm at PHLY_Flyers. And follow the podcast as well, wherever you get those. Just search PHLY Flyers. That'll do it for us. My name is Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Until tomorrow, let's go Flyers.
We all silly like the mayor.